Good morning, students. Today is Thursday morning, and we are continuing with our online learning of A Doll's House. And I am here to talk about some feminism and some toxic masculinity and some all kinds of fun stuff today. So let's get started. All right, the first thing you're going to notice, don't freak out now, class blog looks a little bit different. On Tuesday, we had a security problem with the blog, and I had to go in and update a bunch of stuff, and in updating it, kind of broke all of it. So we have changed the layout of the class blog for the moment, and I actually kind of like it. Like, this is nice. It's different, so something new for us. So don't freak out, because it looks weird. It's okay. Okay, so the first thing I need to remind you of today is don't forget we have a Zoom meeting tomorrow, Friday at 10 a.m. I will send you a link through the Class Remind at 9:45 tomorrow morning. If you are not in the Class Remind, scroll up to the post above this one and make sure you text that code to 81010 to join our Class Remind. Our goals for the week are to finish reading an analysis of A Doll's House. We finished reading yesterday, and so this for the next couple days, today and tomorrow, we are going to be working more on the analysis side of things. I want you to understand why A Doll's House is considered feminist and how it remains relevant today, and then I want you to find a way to collaborate with your teacher or classmates to discuss the play. So today we're mostly working on that second goal. I want you to read and consider this article on toxic masculinity. You're going to read and consider a comic on mental load. My comic has been sort of up and down, so if you can't make that link work, try this article instead. And then I also want you to read and consider this depressing study on how women are expected to do everything. Our standard for today is RI2, determine a central idea of a text and analyze its development over the course of the text. And that goes with our learning target. I can analyze how an author develops a central idea by reading 3 articles so that I can consider my own opinions on feminism and toxic masculinity. Okay, for our activator today, so we've talked a lot about feminism, but today I'm bringing up this new term, toxic masculinity. If you're not sure what that means, check out this YouTube video. He does a really good job of explaining what toxic masculinity is and what's the difference in toxic masculinity versus just being masculine, because there is a difference. You know, obviously not all men are toxic, right? Not all boys are toxic, and not all men have these toxic behaviors. But, and of course some women do, but there is this kind of concept of toxic masculinity that I wanted you to look at. For our work session today, so we're going to be reading some articles on feminism in the modern day, and I would like for you to read these articles, consider them, and then go have a discussion with your family or whomever you're stuck in quarantine with. So our first article is this article from the New York Times on toxic masculinity, so this is it right here. And our author, Maya Salam, goes into you know, kind of where the term came from. She talks about machismo, and it's just a really good solid article on like what it means to deal with toxic masculinity. So as you read that article, I want you to consider these questions. Did you know what toxic masculinity was before reading the article and watching our YouTube video a few minutes ago? Have you or a boy you know of ever been told boys don't cry or man up? What kind of message do you think that sends to little kids when we tell our boys they're not allowed to cry? Like, if they can't be sad, what kind of emotions can they express? And then what's the difference in toxic masculinity and someone just being traditionally masculine? Nothing wrong with, you know, guys that like to work on cars and play sports and that sort of thing. So at what point does it go from being just normal masculine things into that kind of toxic level of behavior? For our second article, I want you to read and consider, let's see if my comic is working. Yeah, okay, so my comic's working right now. The link is going back and forth, so if it's not working for you when you go to do this tomorrow, you'll read this article instead, but let me show you both. So this is this cool comic. It's translated from French. It's called You Should Have Asked, and it really does a good job using these artistic frames of summing up what does mental load mean. And then if that one's not working, here's the article you'll read instead, where she starts off talking about her husband has 3 things that he adds to the grocery list: shaving cream, his shampoo, and shower spray. So she talks about, you know, what is this idea of mental load? while you read those articles or the comic, hopefully the comic's working when you do this, I want you to consider these questions. First of all, have you ever noticed this disproportionate work balance at your own house? If you stay with both your mom and your dad, which parent would you ask if you needed to know information like when is something scheduled? When's my science fair? When is this thing due? When do I have my next game? Or like, are there snacks in the cabinet? Can I eat the snacks that are in the cabinet? Or hey, can you buy me Doritos for this weekend? Like, which parent would you ask those things to, your mom or your dad? Have you ever felt this work-life balance on yourself? Are you or your sister or a girl you know expected to know how to get dinner on the table, like know how to go from ingredients to meal, while boys are just expected to be ready to eat on time? Or maybe that's not how it is in your house, and consider that. That's kind of our third question. If you haven't noticed this, why do you think that is? Why do you think things are different than kind of the standard or the stereotype? And if you have noticed it, do you think it's okay? I know in my house, despite the fact that I'm sitting here teaching about feminism all week, in my house we have fairly traditional domestic roles. I do all of the cooking, I do all of the laundry, and my husband is, if it ever stops raining, going to go out and mow the lawn. So, is that okay? Should I, am I being a bit of a hypocrite by saying, on the one hand, that the mental load shouldn't all fall on mothers, but on the other hand, I am kind of the manager of my household. So I don't know. That's something to really think about, and I want you to consider that. And then our third article is called, it's got a really, really funny headline. It says, "Women are literally expected to do all the chores, depressing study finds." And it goes into an actual study that was done by the American Sociological Association, and it talks about, it was presented at the American Sociological Association's meeting. The researchers were from Indiana University, and it goes into the study that people conducted on who they thought should handle specific roles within the household. And one thing that I thought was particularly interesting about that article is that it actually goes into same-sex couples as well, because obviously gender roles start changing when you've got two partners that are the same gender. So questions to consider for this article: how are chores divided up in your house? It's okay if your mom usually handles laundry and your dad usually handles yard work, but why do you think that's the norm? Our second question, this article talks a little bit about same-sex couples. How do you think that changes the household work balance? And then the last question, this is kind of a sort of extrapolating a little bit. What do you think about roommates? A lot of you guys are going to go off to college in the next couple years. You'll probably live with roommates, at least dorm mates if you're staying on campus. How do you expect the chores are going to be divided up? And then this is something you can really take to your parents or other older family members. Maybe you have a sibling home from college right now. If they've ever had roommates, how did they divide up those chores? When I was in college and I had roommates, for whatever reason, I ended up living with a bunch of guys. And as the only girl, the only woman in the house, it did seem to be that I was always doing laundry, and I was always the one vacuuming, and I was always the one cooking and grocery shopping and doing dishes. Like, it did seem like all of that kind of fell on me. And looking back on it, I really feel like I should have said, hey, all of these guys that I'm living with, why don't you step up? Like, why am I the only one that can load the dishwasher? You have hands, get to it. So, just something to kind of consider, and ask your parents, your older family members, whatever, even older friends, if you want to maybe get on, Skype or FaceTime with someone and ask about these things. How do those chores get divided up when it's roommates? After reading and thinking about these questions, I want you to take the discussion to your family, whomever you're stuck in quarantine with. Ask them the question, show off these articles, listen to what they have to say. You might have different opinions on feminism, and that's totally okay. I want you to have that discussion. For our closing session, remember we have our Zoom meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. I really hope you can attend. It is completely optional, but if you can make it, please try and come tomorrow at 10 a.m. I miss seeing you guys so much. Like, I want to go back to school so bad. So let's see if we can get a little virtual meeting together tomorrow morning. We're going to be talking about how feminism in 2020 relates to A Doll's House, so consider how the play is still relevant today and any lessons of feminism we can learn from it. Have some thoughts ready for tomorrow's meeting. I'll send out the link at 9:45, so remember to get the Zoom client downloaded and ready. You can do it on your phone or on a laptop. Looking ahead, tomorrow's checklist. Attend the virtual class meeting on Zoom if you are able. Find a way to collaborate with your teacher or classmates. You can comment on the blog, you can comment on YouTube, you can do the Zoom meeting. Find some way to collaborate. I want to get that community going. And then do not forget to send your I Need Feminism Because photo to your teacher, and do check on last week's assignment, that feminism definition, because I've given out feedback to everybody that had turned it in as of the time I am recording this. You want to leave a comment on the blog, there's a fancy new comment box right there. And yeah, that's about it for today, guys. Have fun exploring the new theme of the blog, and I will see you tomorrow on Zoom.